Hey guys, this is Jasmine and I'm painting a cute little Cardinal Griffon here. This is older footage that I had saved for a rainy day, which is funny because it's quite rainy today. I had not been feeling super great this week, so I didn't get anything done art-wise, but that's okay because I had this saved, and actually my editing skills have gotten better. Well, I found some settings that are better. So this looks a lot better than it would have if I had released it earlier. I started this artwork last year. It was a piece for my Ko-fi, and if you don't know what Ko-fi is, it's a website that is kind of like a combination of Patreon and Etsy combined. So basically, it's a subscription based, or it has a subscription where I was doing this piece for people to get prints and stickers, but it also has a shop front where it's just my regular shop. And so you can either pay a little bit monthly and get stickers and prints sent to you in the mail, as well as some other things like a percentage off my shop items, that kind of stuff. It's all really cool and really integrated. There's even like Discord integration and stuff, and Twitch integration. It's really cool. And the big thing about Ko-fi is that it doesn't have all the huge fees that Etsy or Patreon both have. And unlike Patreon, where there's not really a huge incentive to follow anyone if you're not going to subscribe to them monthly, Ko-fi has a shop front, so you can just follow it and be updated anytime I have new merchandise like stickers and prints, and eventually, hopefully, some other things and originals and whatnot, which is really cool. And it also even has a commission page, so you can see if there's any commissions available and pricing, and ask me questions about that or whatever. Anyways, this is a long time to talk about this. I didn't intend to talk about my shop for so long, but there is a link down below, and I do also have an Etsy shop, but there are more fees, so that's why Ko-fi is really nice. At any rate, I was painting this for Ko-fi. Let's get back to the artwork. And it was winter, I believe, so I wanted like a cozy winter scene. And I came up with the idea for a Cardinal Griffon because I love Griffons that are a little bit unique, that have different markings, different types of cats, etc., that are used as like the base. And I unfortunately don't have the sketch footage, as I'm sure you've noticed, but that's okay because the sketch part wasn't super interesting. I do a lot of erasing, and I think I did the sketch digitally and then I just traced it for this one. And then I go in with a marker as a base. That's pretty much my go-to. This is before I had acrylic markers, so you won't see those in this video. But I do go in later with gouache. I believe this piece is primarily marker and gouache. I'm using mostly the Ohuhu markers. I may use some Copics. I have Ohuhus and Copics, and they're just all mixed together. I use them both. They work perfectly great together. And because I was going for this kind of snowy, misty kind of feeling, I didn't try and lay down a solid color for the background. Instead, I went with this kind of speckledy sort of texture, and I just kept building from like really lights to darker grays and blues. I really wanted to keep that kind of cold, wintry feeling. I'm not sure if I have a whole lot more to say about the art process itself, but I am kind of excited to read to you guys a little excerpt that I wrote about the griffins from my world, because most of the time I do art, fantasy art, unless it's directly Dungeons and Dragons fan art, then it's going to be artwork for my own world and my own campaign setting. So if anyone is unfamiliar, which I'm sure most of you are, I am working on my own world. It's called Seref. It's a fantasy world, and it's, think of basically Dungeons and Dragons. And if you're not familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, it's like just a very high fantasy world, somewhat medieval based aesthetics. And I'm working on my entire own rule set. At first I was going to make Seref like an add-on campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons, or like Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, because that's what I play, or Pathfinder, because that's the other thing I play. But then they came out with Pathfinder 2, and now they're on to, like, I don't even know what edition of Dungeons and Dragons. So I actually took everything that I like from those books, and newer ones and older ones like AD&D, and I'm, as well as making my own rules, I'm coming up with my own campaign setting and rule books. I'm like making my entire own game, which is crazy to me. And at first I thought the systems were going to be really, really similar, and they're definitely similar, but they're very much their own and my own creation. And I work a little bit with my boyfriend, bouncing ideas and coming up with plans. I went on another big huge tangent, but all right, I've got my own world, right? My own fantasy world with its own races and creatures and stuff. But griffins are part of lots and lots of fantasy worlds, right? They're not very unique, although you will find that there's a lot of not necessarily specifically unique creatures. But I did stray away from things specifically like goblins, kobolds, ogres, that kind of thing. So I keep running off on tangents. I'm going to launch into a description about the griffins of Seref, of my own world. I will leave you with one last little informational bit, is the race that I'm going to talk about, the humanoid race, called Delshari. It's important to note that they have a strong reverence for reptiles. They originated in the desert. There was a lot of reptiles, and so they consider reptiles to be very important in their society and their culture. All right, so let's launch into the griffin description. Origin of the griffin. Centuries ago came a peddler to Seref from a mythical land on another plane of existence, boasting many unique and fascinating objects. Among them were 4 cases of large, bespeckled eggs. Drawn by the allure and mystery, Delshari nobles spent a fortune buying the peddler's wares, and set their best lizard trainers to the task of rearing the eggs. But to the Delshari's surprise, when the eggs matured, they did not birth great reptiles, but instead the furred and feathered visage of the first griffins of Seref. They bore the lines of powerful golden hunting cats, and grew massive feathered wings, but where a feline's head should be, instead was the sharp beak of a bird of prey. Unprepared for the task at hand, many trainers lost their cunning charges to the wilds, where they grew and flourished among the rocky savannas of the bleeding plains. Griffins are now found throughout the continents of Roth, Everfrost, and perhaps even more. They have taken on many forms, adapted to new environments, and bred with new species. The most common by far, however, remains the great golden griffins of the bleeding plains. and that's the origin of Seref's Griffons. I hope you guys liked the story. Let me know in the comments, and let me know what kind of griffin you think would be the most interesting combination to see. I have a lot of ideas for different types. So the Great Golden Griffons that I wrote as being the first type of griffin introduced to the world of Seref is your standard tawny lion and golden eagle kind of mixture. And they would live in like the savannas and large rocky open areas. But this little guy is much smaller. I'm not sure if anyone has caught on yet or noticed, but the back end of this griffin is a lynx. So not only is it a cardinal griffin, but it's a cardinal lynx griffin. I absolutely love lynx. I think they are so cute. And I absolutely love cardinals. I think they're beautiful. This one obviously is a male because it's red. I actually have stickers that go with this artwork that have both a male and a female one. Female cardinals, and therefore female cardinal griffins, are more of like a grayish, warm grayish brown kind of color. So my thoughts for this griffin is that they live in like the snowy kind of forested areas, probably mostly like coniferous or maybe alder forests and stuff way up north, and they use their big padded feet to walk on the snow, but they're not very predatory. I consider these to still be primarily like vegetation eating and large seeds and whatnot. The world of Seref is full of things like giant plants as well as giant animals and other fantasy things like that. So I don't think they would have a lot of trouble finding things like giant cones and giant flowers like sunflower type things and whatnot that make larger seeds, right? But they're also not really big, so they don't need to find giant plants, right? And I figure they would probably also scavenge meat here and there if they find any, because pretty much all animals do, whether they are herbivore or not. But that would not be their primary source of food, and I think that they would stash caches of good roots and plant matter and whatnot around their nest, because some birds, I believe, yeah, definitely some birds stash stuff, kind of like squirrels and whatnot. They'll stash acorns and whatnot. Acorns would probably be a big one. But also, obviously, cats will stash food for later. So you'll have like these caches in the forest where the cardinal griffins have put their food and stores for then being able to dig into in the winter when it gets cold and there's no longer much food source. And obviously if they come across like any kind of fresh fresh carrion, they would probably take a nibble of that as well. I absolutely love how this one turned out. I loved the bright reds. I was so worried about it though. I was nervous going in with the red. I'm always nervous, but especially with marker, because ink is so permanent and I did not plan on going over this heavily with paint or anything. I feel a little bit less nervous nowadays with the Arctic markers because they're so easy to just pick one up and cover up mistakes, right? But ink is so permanent. I loved working on the pattern, and I think it will really come together once I add that bold black. Here we go. I'm adding the bold black now, and that's when it really, really starts to look like, oh, that is a cardinal right there, right? Cardinals are one of my favorite birds, even though we don't have them here. I wish we did. At least as far as I know, I have never seen a cardinal. The closest I've seen to a cardinal is like our goldfinch kind of birds. We've got some like goldfinch kind of birds and some tanager kind of birds that look kind of similar. And our blue jays, they have like the little crest, but they're Stellar's jays, so they're not quite as bright and colorful as the blue jays that are, I believe, out east. Ours are more like a dark iridescent blue. But I would love to go see cardinals in the wild someday. I think I'm super attached to them because my mom has always loved cardinals, and they've been a big part of our Christmas decor. She had seen a lot of cardinals growing up because she lived in Illinois, but me, not so much. I think my favorite local bird is probably the goldfinches. I really, really like goldfinches. I like hummingbirds too. I like them in general. We do get to see eagles, which is very neat because they feel so normal out here, but a lot of people think it's crazy to see the bald eagles. But they're everywhere out here. Every time I go for a walk in the morning, I hear them. We're getting to the gouache part now. I was laying down some fairly watered down white gouache to really push that misty atmosphere in the background. And then I'm going in to add some extra grays and colors to the lynx part of the Griffon because it just wasn't quite the color that I was looking for with just the marker. And I also wanted to get some fur texture in there. This is probably my favorite stage of most paintings. This like final touches here that I use, say, the gouache to really pull everything together. I loved using the white gouache to add snow details. I'm still working a little bit on the fur, but I'm keeping it really light because I want everything to look frosted essentially. But I do go in with more pure white here to add actual snow onto all of the trees and the Griffon and stuff, and that really pulls it together. If you're going to be painting snow on trees like this, make sure to keep in mind that the snow will pool in all of those V shapes in the tree wherever it branches off. So you'll get like this thick area of snow in the little crevices like that. And then you'll usually have a little bit of snow along the edges. If there's been wind hard from one side, you'll pretty much only have snow on one side. But I wanted to really make these trees stand out, particularly these trees in front. I hope this has been an interesting process to watch and that you've enjoyed my ramblings. And I hope you guys are at least maybe a little bit excited to hear more about my world in the future, because I am currently doing a lot of work that is related to Seref, and I just really want to share it with people. I'm excited. I'm excited about all the stuff I've been creating. I've been working on this world for years and years and years, but only recently have I started actually writing out rules and like rule book kind of stuff, and outlining an actual like player's handbook kind of thing. I've been working mostly just on the monsters and the lore and the map for a long time, but now I'm finally bringing together all of the play rules and the stuff that I've been doing in my campaigns forever and making it an official book. Someday there will be an official book, and I hope that when that day comes that lots and lots of people, well, you, my followers, the people I like to talk to, I hope that you guys are excited to see what I have come up with and to see the physical form of my brainchild world. What do people call that? I don't know. I'm rambling again. This is kind of a long video, but we are getting towards the end. Ooh, this is like my favorite part. Well, I loved when I added the snow to the trees, but my favorite is when I add the snow to the Griffon. It is so fun. I love adding all the little speckly snows and making it look like it's just been either like rooting through the snow looking for seeds, and maybe it's cache of overwintered food, or it has just been hanging out for a while and sitting like the way dogs do, you know, when they're laying out in the yard and they get all covered in snow. This is kind of inspired by a Robert Bateman artwork where he painted a herd of elk in the snow, and they're like laying down in the snow, and they've got all of like this late snowfall has dusted all of their fur, and I remember thinking it was such a cool artwork. So when I added the snow, that's really what I was thinking about. I don't always recommend going in with marker after you've used gouache because sometimes it will clog up the tip, but I did want to go in and deepen some of the darks with my Ohuhu markers and just add some final touches here and there. If you're careful, it will be okay because you will just have a scrap piece of paper nearby that if any paint gets into the nib of your marker, you just scrub that part on the spare piece of paper until all of the paint is off of your marker. And that's also what you can do if you're blending two different colors and you get a bunch of one color ink. Say you're using a yellow marker on red and you get a bunch of red ink on the yellow marker tip, you just have that spare piece of paper and you just color with that yellow marker until all of the red is off the tip, and it might stain the tip of your marker, but it will be okay. It will just be staining and it won't affect your future drawings. Here we go with the very final bits. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a bit of a rambly one. I'm trying to do this mostly all in one take, but I do have, like I said, I have a Ko-fi shop linked down below and my Etsy, I believe, linked down below, and all of that good stuff. If you really like this style of video, I want to do like calm, cozy, draw with me, paint with me kind of videos. I want to fill up my whole channel with videos that people can put on and just be like, I like listening to this lady ramble for a long time while I'm working on my own artwork, or while I'm working on something else, or doing the dishes, or whatever, or maybe just sitting and watching it, maybe enjoying the process. I mean, that would always be nice as well. But yeah, I like to make cozy videos. I don't do a lot of aesthetic stuff, like aesthetic shots. I have sometimes a little bit of b-roll. I think that stuff is pretty, but I really like having a very natural vibe to my videos. I'm not trying to do anything complicated. I want to just be myself And so that's why I don't edit out things like when I say and stuff. I want my authentic self here, right? And cue the end of the rambling, because this is the end of the video. Like and subscribe if you want to, and thank you guys so much for stopping by.